Questions and comments? Honourable Député de Gatineau.
The Honourable Member for Gatineau. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, the Public Safety Committee looked at the abolishing of the Firearms Registry, and so I won't convince him with the following question, but we're aware on this side of the House that they're so convinced that they have the right approach, have such an ideological approach that there's really nothing to say. But I do want to identify a few things he said or focus on them. He said that the colleagues in the NDP had voted for the registry are acting on behalf of their constituents. I wonder if the member opposite knows that these people were re-elected in 2011, even after they changed their views because they were convinced of the merit of the position put forth by Jack Layton that we would make changes, improvements to the registry so that hunters wouldn't feel criminalized, and that is what we proposed. Unfortunately, the Conservatives didn't listen to anything.
Honourable Member for Yukon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure if there was a real specific question to me in there, but I will address one thing, that we're taking an ideological approach to this. In fact, we're taking a fact-based approach to this. There isn't much ideological about this. Everything we heard on committee was fact-based, so that's hardly ideological. And that's coming from our constituents. And while a few members may have survived out of popularity on a number of fronts within the opposition benches, I can clearly tell you there are a number of brand new members in this House today, courtesy of decisions made when other members that are no longer here turned their backs on the wishes of their constituents. And I refuse to do that for members of my riding in the Yukon Territory. They made it loud and clear, and I'm going to stand up for their values.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I would like to congratulate my colleague on his speech. He brought up some points that I think are valid. In the case of the criminality comparisons, driver's licenses with gun licenses and the criminality involved, and he's got a point. There's some confusion I have, though, about this. And this comes from a constituent of mine who says, and my constituent agrees with them, that the database, being in a database for gun ownership, makes him a criminal. He feels like a criminal as a result of it. And that's what he said to me. Here's the catch. He owns a handgun. He owns 2 handguns. The government has decided that they will maintain a handgun registry. So my question is very simple. The wasteful, ineffective handgun registry, which he points out the registry is ineffective and wasteful, why would they continue that given how wasteful and ineffective it may prove to be due to his logic? Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Yukon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I can simply state that we made a commitment. We didn't go any further than the commitment to end the long gun registry, and that's what we're going to do. But if my honourable colleague would like to initiate a private member's bill to scrap the wasteful and ineffective handgun registry, I might consider seconding that motion for him.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for his speech. The point that struck me as most important was that this wasteful and ineffective registry was not only a burden on hunters and farmers and people who make their living using these tools of the trade for them, but it was a burden upon some of the Canadians who are among the most law-abiding citizens that we have. And he and I both replaced representatives of a party that now sits in the corner of this House. The person I replaced was one of those who had probably extended the life of this registry by at least a year. Would the honourable member agree with me that by continuing to place this burden on very law-abiding Canadians, and by voting against real measures to make Canadians safe, those proposed by this government, members opposite, those that continue to support a long gun registry, are not listening to Canadians and showing that they are the ones who are out of touch with this country?
The honourable member for Yukon.
I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for that question, and I would wholeheartedly agree. And I guess we're going to get to the third reading vote tonight, and we'll end the wasteful and ineffective long gun registry. And hey, in a great democratic process, there's nothing at all that's going to prevent the opposition 4 years from now from running a good, solid campaign on bringing the long gun registry back. And let's see how far they get with that campaign approach. I would encourage them to do that.
Testing, comment to that.
Questions and comments.
Député de Saint.
The honourable member for Saint Jean. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I listened to the speech of my colleague from Yukon, and I found it pretentious because he uses the expression. And as far as I know, laws are made to be changed, but if they are made to be changed in one fashion, they can be changed in another fashion. So I find it pretentious for him to say that the law that is going to be voted upon tonight will eliminate something once and for all. Something else I would like to mention about the member's speech is that he compares firearms to vehicles. And in his myth number 6, if I heard him correctly, that's the comparison he makes. And I'd like to ask him how he can compare a firearm to a car, because a firearm, or rather a car is used to move around and a firearm is used to kill most of the time.
God.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first, I would say my apologies to my honourable colleague sitting next to me if you found anything I said pretentious, because I certainly don't mean to come across that way to him at all. I'm very passionate about this, as are all the people in my riding. So I mean, I can't necessarily hide my excitement about some of the things that are going to occur, but I didn't mean to come across as pretentious. So if I came across that way, my apologies. Maybe I should clear something up on the myth number 6. I wasn't comparing firearms and vehicles. What I was suggesting, Mr. Speaker, is that the opposition has said that licensing your gun is no different than licensing your car. And I said that that's a myth, because there is a very big difference between the consequences of not registering your vehicle and the consequences of not registering your firearm. One has provincial summary ticketable consequences, while the other has criminal implications, and those are far too severe, far too strict, specifically for a paperwork error that we've seen a number of times with this registry. So that was the comparison I was making, and I hope that clarifies that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to ask my honourable friend, the Member of Parliament for the Yukon, whether he finds any contradiction in the fact that the Minister for Public Safety had attacked the long gun registry as an invasion of privacy, but now proposes in Bill C-30 to put forward a registry with private information. Will the honourable member for the Yukon also be opposing Bill C-30 as I intend to?
The honourable member for Yukon.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And personally, I don't see the comparison between holding information that's already going through the internet in a manner that's being allowing the proliferation of child pornography in our country as a database in the same fashion that a database with the long gun registry is. I, as a long gun owner, need to physically fill out paperwork, go through screening, supply it to a registry that's been wrought with errors, that personally has sent back to me registration information for firearms I didn't even own. And that, in and of itself, risks putting me in a criminal position. They're very, very different systems, and the lawful access legislation, in my mind, is a good body of legislation to shut down a very, very heinous and sick crime that's existing in our country with pedophilia and child pornography. So I will be voting to support that, because the privacy laws of Canadians in that one, as our minister made very clear, are going to be protected. I've read the bill myself, and I'm confident that the strict provisions in there for warrant applications are absolutely assuring Canadians privacy and also consumer competitiveness or corporate competitiveness, which I think is an excellent step. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.